This is the second workshop of the day and the last workshop. And much unlike the previous one where we talked about native workspace, we're going to be talking about web in Webpack. So I'd just like to see some hands up if you, I'd like to understand if you guys have worked with Webpack before. Have you? Just raise your hands if you have. So on a scale of 1 through 10, when 10 is like Webpack contributor, if you're above 5, can you raise your hands? No, so you're all kind of just, you know, starting and using configurations that you get from the internet or someone else's, right? That's awesome. That's like, that's pretty much what I want to say 99.9% of people do, right? So the goal today is not have presentations. I'm going to do my Elton John thing. So it's not, we're not going to be doing any presentations. We're not going to be showing keynotes. We're just going to try to talk, okay? So I have a little list here that I compiled and that you probably now can't even see. A little bit better. Something like this. Kind of the stuff what I'd like to achieve, and maybe too much, we may not make it. But if there is anything that's not on the list, I mean, there is some stuff that I'm going to be talking about that's not on the list. But if there's something that you guys would like to cover, if there is a specific problem that you have, you know, it'd be awesome if you let me know, and we'll try to tackle that. I don't have a slide, so I'll just keep on talking. My name is Grgur. That's how you can call me, or Grgur in Croatian. I'm from Split. Work for a company based out of Washington, D.C., where we help a lot of clients across the world build their web apps. So a lot of what I'm going to talk is going to come from maybe 2 different areas. One is helping build some of the, I'm pretty sure, largest web apps in the world for clients that I can't talk about. And also from my open source contributions to various projects, including Webpack and React. So I'm not going to focus on React. I will have a kind of sample code that's going to be built in React. We're not going to bother with any React specific topics, but I think the only exposure to React is going to be code splitting. And that's not even listed here, I think. I'll just add it. Smaller vendor, I'll just toss it somewhere. Let's say it's here, code splitting. All right, you guys can keep the door open because we're gonna suffocate and die if we don't get enough air. All right, so you know what? Let's go ahead and kick this off. I hope you have NPM installed. I hope you have Yarn, one of the other. You have Node. If you don't, you're kind of screwed, and you know, maybe you can wait until the other half of the when we start cloning another repo. So let's just go ahead and you know, we're going to create a new kind of project. We call it intro, and just press enter. All right, sure. Oh yes, I am. All right. So we have a new kind of NPM application, and the one thing that we're going to add is, I'm sure you can see that, we're going to add Webpack. Bam. All right. I'm using Yarn. You can do npm I Webpack. Like in the real world, you probably want to do something like this. This means it's a dev dependency, not application dependency. So Webpack is usually a development dependency because you need it to help you build an app, but it's not an essential part of the app. It's not going to be shipped inside your app. Okay, so we have this. We're also going to create a few folders. I need an app folder. This is where my application code is going to live. And I'm going to create some, JS file. This is going to be the entry point of my app. This is where my app starts from. And I'm also going to need a build directory. So when I build files, I'm going to build them inside the build directory. So what we have now is app folder. How about this? Okay. So we have our app folder, we have a build folder, node modules, package, and yarn log. Any questions? No? Awesome. And if I run this in Visual Studio Code, in my IDE, I'm going to see that same thing. I'm not seeing, should I be seeing? I'm not seeing the build folder. Hey, and I'm not seeing the build folder. I'm not seeing node modules because that's what my setup looks like. But they are here. Maybe I should comment that out. All right. Somewhere. Maybe not. This is the beauty of live coding. Okay. So that's our first thing. So we're going to also need one more file, which is Webpack config. Go figure. So we're going to touch it. Webpack.config.js. This is the default name. So if you have your Webpack config, if you call it webpack.config.js, you don't need to tell Webpack where it is because Webpack is going to look for this. Okay, back in ID, Webpack config.js, and it's a phenomenal JavaScript file with nothing in it. So the one thing that we want to add is a module. So from now on, we are going to talk about files as modules because this is a modular application. If you're not building a modular application, you don't need Webpack for it. You're probably building a Hello World script, but most modern applications are going to be modular. Modular means you're going to import and export various modules. So to do that, we can't use quite yet. We can't use import and export statements from ES 2015 yet, but we are going to do the old school module exports. We need to set a few things up. First thing is we need to tell our app what the entry point is. This is the index.html. So what I'm going to say is my index.html is in app/index.js. Okay. Next, I need to tell it where to build. Right. So when I build something, I need to know where my built application is going to be at. So my entry point is that, and then my output is, and then this is an object. I want to say it's going to be located in build. Okay. Okay. Right. And I also need to tell it one more thing. How do we name our files? We know what our entry point is, that's index.js, but most likely we are not going to build index.js. We're probably going to build something else. All right, so what I'm going to say is I'm going to say file name is going to be something. I'm going to say name.js. Okay, so what am I doing here? Actually, let's do this. Bundle.js. All right, there is one little problem here. This is not going to work. We can try it out. Okay, I'm going to access Webpack in a very weird way. I installed it, and it has a binary that's located in node modules.bin.webpack. So just for a few initial tries, I'm going to use this command. So if I run it, it's not working because it's funny. Entry point is allowed to be a string and is allowed to be relative, but the build folder, nah, it has to be an absolute path. So what we are going to do here is we're going to say, okay, we need to import path This is a regular node module. Oh, look at that. Require path. Okay. And we're going to say, okay, build folder. You know, build. Okay, resolve. Okay, this is just me writing node. Why am I writing node? Because Webpack is a node app. It's not just that. Webpack, well, Webpack dev server is also an Express app, so you can write a lot of node inside. Resolve, you know, build. That's it. So resolve my build folder. That's my build directory. And if I do replace that, it's here. Bundle.js. Okay, awesome. Anyone else got this? Anyone not getting this? Okay, just shaking your hand, but you don't have your computer in your lap, so. All right, so this is it. But you know what? I don't really like having constants for folders and file names, and then not having them. So we need some kind of, you know, we need a way to be very specific about this and keep some, you know, constant workflow and coding style. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to say, you know, this is my build directory, but I need my app directory, right? Okay, my app directory is going to be, or you know what, source. Source directory is going to be app, okay? And I'm going to say, this is going to be my, where is it? This guy. And I'm going to say constant entry point is going to be, okay, so from source, and it's going to be index.js. Okay, I'm doing all these methods on a path because I want this app to be cross-platform compatible. So, you know, I don't want to think about / /. So I'm going to let Node figure it out. So my entry point is this guy, and it should work again. Yeah. Okay. Create another bundle. There is one more thing that I want to change here. I'm going to do this name. I'm going to let Node figure out how to call this. Okay. I don't want to call it bundle. Why? Because I can have multiple entry points. I can have a big app that has maybe front end and back end. Well, not in terms of API, but in terms of maybe admin interface and maybe some other interface. You know, maybe we can have, you know, a dozen of entry points, and then we need to figure out how to build that. Obviously, if I replace bundle with square brackets and name, then Webpack is going to automatically fill the name of the entry point in. So by some magic, I'm going to get main.js. Now, who can tell me why did we get main.js? Where is this main coming from? You know what? I'm going to do this, and this. Okay. Where is name coming from? I mean main. No? All right. So entry point, this is kind of just a shorthand setup for entry point. The real stuff is actually this. Main. This is what Webpack parses entry point as, if it's a string. So if I change this from main to app and then run this again, I'm going to get app.js. I'm going to try to zoom that in, app.js. You guys can see that, right? Cool beans. All right. Any questions so far? No? Okay. So there's one more thing that I'm going to do. I'm going to save this. I'm going to go back to package, because you know what? I'm sure none of you actually write .node modules.bin/webpack. What do? npm start? Okay, but that's probably for running, right? Do you ever build? Okay, almost. So, okay, let's make this bigger again. So npm has this cool file called package.json where we can configure our application or package project settings, right? There are several scripts made available. Obviously, start, as someone commented, and we can type here. What do we type here to get Webpack to run on? Not you, someone else. Just Webpack. Webpack. So I actually get this question often. Webpack. So how, why Webpack? Why not, people very often write, Node, modules, blah, blah, blah. But actually no. Node knows how to resolve, because if you run a Node script, Node is going to actually sort of add .bin into the path. So when you run Webpack, it's going to know where Webpack is. All right. So if I, there is an error. Okay. If I start npm or yarn start, there or npm start. Yay. Okay. So this guy recognizes this. However, I'm not happy with start, because when I use npm start, I really want to launch a web server, right? And this may be just me. So what I'm going to change is to build. So from now on, we use build. So, previously I was able to run npm start. Right now, I can't do that anymore. What I can do, I can use npm run build. Okay. So there are a few predefined commands or script names that you can use for npm. Build is not one of them, so you need to use npm run build, or you could have also used npm run start. And if I use npm run build, I have my little build right here. Okay. Any questions so far? Am I going too quick? Okay. I'll take silence as yes and yes and yes and no. Okay, let me see what else. So we have an awesome app that has this index.js that really does nothing. Shut up. Really does nothing, right? So we need to figure out how we can interact with a user. We need to load it, right? Which means that we miss a crucial file called index.html, right? So how do you usually add index.html in Webpack? Does anyone use HTML Webpack plugin? No? No, you don't know how you usually use HTML? Awesome, that's brilliant, because it helps me show some magic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first create index.html. Okay, and I'm going to use some of the awesome code, and I'm going to use head, and I'm going to use title, not title, that would be awesome, title, is shift, okay, and I'm going to add one more thing. I need script, right? Script source is bundle, right? My bundle is going to be named, no, app.js, and call that script. Okay, now I have to figure out how I can actually call this, and this is going to be super simple. Import index.html. All right, so I'm going to use, actually, not this, but I have to use relative path. So I'm going to just import the HTML into JavaScript, and this is where we start seeing benefits of Webpack, because we can teach Webpack to import any kind of files. We can import JavaScript, obviously, but we can also import JSON. We can import HTML, obviously, and we can import fonts, images, right? And there are very specific ways in how Webpack handles those files. So we need to actually tell Webpack that this index.html is going to be a file that's going to be copied to the build folder, and it's not going to do anything else with it. So to do that, we're gonna introduce something called loader, right? This is a part that exists in every modern Webpack config. In Webpack 2, and we are strictly talking about Webpack 2 here because this is like the default Webpack. Webpack 1 has been deprecated. So we're going to define a module like let's say how we handle modules. We said every file is a module from now on. What we're going to do is let's say we have some rules, okay, and rules is actually an array because we have multiple rules. So it's array of objects, and we're going to say, okay, so for every .html, okay, every file that ends in .html, we are going to use, okay, it's almost plain English. We're going to use a loader called file loader. Okay. That's awesome. I got everything, but I don't have file loader. All these loaders are additional packages. So let me do this. Okay. Okay, if you guys are following me with this, I'll keep the code on the right side, and I'm going to actually need to add this loader. So I need file loader. It's as simple as that. I need to add it, right? If you use npm, that's npm I or npm install file loader. I'm going to say -d means it's the dev dependency. Kill that network. All right. So I install my file loader. There are dozens of loaders available. Commonly used Babel loader, file loader, URL loader, and who knows what loader, board loader. Okay, so now that we have this, we're gonna do another build. All right, we see something else. All right, so oh my gosh, what do we have? We have app.js and we have this crazy HTML. I should have been index HTML. What do I do now? Okay, so the thing is, Webpack created a hash. So it imported a file, created a hash that identifies this version of index.html. So every time I build, if I have not changed index.html, it's going to retain that hash. As soon as I change something in that file, it's going to figure out, oh, this file has changed and there's a new version. I'm going to create a new hash. Why is that important? Anyone? Caching. For aggressive caching, so you can set your web server to cache your statics indefinitely, and you don't really have to worry about that. As soon as there's a new hash name there, it's gonna pull that from the server without caching involved. All right, but we need to figure this out because we don't really want hash name. We really want index.html. So I'm gonna send a query to the loader, and I'm gonna say, okay, give it a name, okay, and whatever the name we use initially, whatever the file name it originally is, just keep that file name, okay, and appended the same extension, okay. Why? Because maybe I'm gonna use the same process for other files. Maybe going to use it for JPEGs. Maybe going to use it, oh, look at that, JPEG. Or maybe I'm going to use it for, WAV, and like this. So whatever I'm going to use as, just keep that name dot extension. So index.html. If I rerun this, yes, I got index.html. Cool beans. Awesome. Let me know if I need to pause. All right. Then no. Okay, now I'm not running this yet because it's not a fun app. To run this, I'm gonna add web server. I'm gonna add the famous Webpack dev server. So it's gonna be simple for you guys. I'm gonna yarn add Webpack dev server, and it's also a dev dependency. Okay. So what we have now is a new script. This is our chance to use start, and that's going to be Webpack. Oh, look at me. Webpack dev server. I couldn't use single quotes because this would not be a valid JSON file, and a package.json has to be a valid JSON file. Okay, so Webpack dev server. I still don't have to reference the config file. If I had to, I'd use config and then Webpack config JS. Yeah. And since I named this script as start, I can run it with yarn start. Bam. Do you want to allow node? Yes. Okay, I got a bunch of content, huge output, but what I really care about is this guy. I personally always care for time because with big apps, this tends to grow. And I've been called to help with an app that had to run in 400 seconds on the fastest computer they had in their development team. We went from 400 seconds to 13. You can imagine the boost in productivity of that team. I'm going to try to mention a few tips and tricks on how you can scale that down. Okay, so ran my Webpack dev server, and I can just run localhost 3000. No, that's not going to work. Why? Because Webpack tells me, oh, it's 8080 because by default it's 8080. I know pretty much everyone got used to 3000, and there it is. Well, how can I know? Because I have Shift 2017 workshop. So maybe, you know, I owe some code. I'm going to use this. Index.html, we're going to add body tag. And we're going to say div, and ID is something like root. And I'm going to say, I'm going to cheat a little bit and say root dot inner HTML. Okay. If I reload this, it's not going to work because root is not defined. Because why are you not defined? Because it's stupid. I'm sorry, I just don't know how to disable tweet. I mean, I disabled Chrome. This is Canary. Get element by ID and then root. Okay. Nope. Not right. Dot in inner HTML. No, I'm doing the right. Inner. Yeah, are you not finding this guy? It is. Hello. Okay. I'm just gonna copy this. I'm not sure why this guy is. Is anyone seeing the error? Yes, sir. Is here? Well, see, that's the thing. Webpack dev server is gonna pick it up. He's gonna pick it up, and I'm gonna use this root in there. HTML, and you know, I'll do it. I'll trust you with this. Off null. Okay. You know what? I'm gonna do this right now. It works, but okay. Why are you not registering? But that's the beauty of live coding. That's the beauty of like, why are you not? I really want to debug this now. It's not here. No. Body. Oh. Okay, what happened? Script tag was in head. My div was in root. Was in body. And what happened is, when script tag is here, the browser says, okay, pause rendering, pull this file, and then execute it, and then continue rendering. And that's a bad thing. You know what? I'm going to handle this another way. I'm going to say this. Now it works. Okay, back to that setup. And it works. Ta-da. All good. Any questions? Yes, please.
If you open the package JSON, I lost you on the dev server part.
Yes, sir. You just start Webpack dev server. You don't need this part. Okay, give me a quick feedback. Am I typing and switching things too fast?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna try to pause. I'm really trying to cover a lot of ground today. Phew. Okay, all good? Awesome. Okay, Webpack config. Okay, so I'm not sure about you, but I really don't care for a port that's called 8080. I really like to use 3000, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to set my config, because I can tell my config how to handle not just Webpack, but also Webpack dev server. And then there is a new object, new key, called dev server. And I'm going to tell it, okay, port is going to be 3000. And this is just remarkable. I'm sure you just wonder, or you're wondering, you're like, what the hell is he doing? What does port 3000 do? I restarted, and port 8080 doesn't work anymore, but 3000 does. Okay. Okay, we're getting closer to what we usually get from those boilerplate Webpack configs. All right. On my little cheat list, oh, let's check where we're at. Okay, minimal setup, I think that's done. And then output, we talked about output, that's done. HTML through file loader, that's done. Dev server, yeah. Okay, there's one thing, sending variables to Webpack. Let's talk about that. So, I told web server to run on port 3000, but in our real world applications, we may not know what port our service is running on. I don't know if you've been to the Heroku talk. I haven't, so I don't know if they talked about this, but like on services like Heroku, you don't really know what port you can use. Maybe you are, CI/CD. Maybe they use, various ways of specifying ports that they want to use. So we can use, a very common thing, which is environmental variables, right? But here, I trust, a lot of people do know about that, and if they don't, that's very well covered online. The one thing that, the one problem with environmental variables is that they're not really cross-platform compatible. So Webpack 2 has this new way of handling that. So we can actually pass switches to Webpack CLI, and Webpack can forward that to our config. Okay, so I need to change this config a little bit. And instead of exporting an object with config, I'm going to export a function. Okay, same thing. It's a function, and you know what? It returns this object. Okay, the same object. I need to close this guy, and I'm going to reformat. Okay, this is all I've done. Okay, return the function. In my function, it's going to have this little variable, env. And obviously, in JavaScript, we can name this whatever. But the thing is, we're going to use env through CLI. Okay. Okay. So, but we need to check if that exists. So you know what? What I'm going to do is I'm going to use some good old ES6. That's why we all have nodes 6 or 7 or 8, right? So I'm going to say this is going to default to an empty object, so I don't have to check if it exists every time, because sometimes we're not going to pass it. Okay, so let's say port is env.port, or it's going to be 3000. Okay. Now let me collapse some of this so I can write on in one screen. And now port is going to be this guy. All right, and I'm going to do something else. I want to keep this on the side because you guys are complaining that I'm going too fast, whiners. And I'm going to go back to my package JSON. I'm going to say start is going to be Webpack dev server. Okay, and I'm going to say env.port equals to maybe 4,000. Oh, yeah, 4,000 is okay. 4,001, just for the fun of it. All right, okay. I'll pause for a second. Second is up. I'm going to do this guy here so you can still see what I'm doing. Let's clear this. Again, I'm going to use npm this time. npm start. Oh, yes. Okay. Localhost 4001. Yes, I'm going to copy this because I don't want to retype the number 3000. And it's working. Thank God. Okay, do we have any questions so far?
Is this like a real environment variable, or is just a value that gets passed to Webpack? These stack with the number of variables you set manually.
Okay, so if I got this question right, the question is the env variables, are they real environmental variables or just switches that are sent to Webpack? These are just the switches. These are not going to be saved as environmental variables. They're going to, be enclosed inside Webpack. It's like a closure. And it's not going to get out of the ecosystem. Okay? Awesome question. Anyone else? No. As you can imagine, this is a phenomenal way of, if like keeping one config file, unless it grows really big, one config file, and then sending information whether you want a production settings or development settings or some other settings. Like a good example is testing, for settings for testing. Okay, we got that. Let me take that off. It's 5:10. Does anyone want to take a break? No? You don't care for a break? Awesome. Perfect. Okay. Now the next thing I have here is resolving module paths. I really like this thing, and I'll tell you why. Okay, let's say this index.html. You know what? I just don't like using DOS/index.html. It makes sense sometimes if I'm deeply nested in a dedicated special component and I'm accessing a subfolder of that component. That makes sense. But let's say if I have, you know, a structure like this, components, then I have, let's say a button, and then I have, whoa, okay, oh, gamepad buttons, okay. I have button component, and let's say I have components, and then I have alert component, okay. And then I want to import, and then I'm going to do this. Components alert. Ever seen that? Yeah, you love it? Okay, then you move things around that need to come back and trace the paths and whatnot, and that becomes a problem. So what we're going to do is we're going to open this up, and we're going to add new folder. I'm going to say component. I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to give a new file. Let's say button. Button. I'm going to call it new file index.js. Bam. Okay. And this button is going to do something else. I'm going to say root. You know what? Because modern browsers should recognize root as the ID of a DOM element. I should be able to say inner HTML, and then I'm going to use this awesome plus equals button. Actually, you know what? I'm going to do this. Export function render button. Okay. Export function render button, and this is going to be button. Hello, I'm a button. Okay, without this. Okay, so I have this awesome module that I'm going to use. I need to import it, right? Export function render button. So that means I need to import it from index.html. So import, you know, render button from. And then button. Okay, this is not going to work because I need to get that object because it's not a default export, it's a named export, so it's render button. Am I going too fast? Is you following? Tell me if I need to get back. Okay. This is some ES6 magic. Sorry. Render button. And at the end of this, I'm going to say set timeout. Set timeout, and you know what? I'm going to use ES5. No error functions, and I'm going to say render button after 1,000 milliseconds. Okay. All good? Okay, I'm going to do something real quick. That, and get back to here. See that? Okay, the button is going to show after a second. Then I can, you know what? I can do this in case you're not seeing it. Okay. So what I was going to do, I don't really like, as I said, doing this. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to say just button. And if I just say just button, this guy's going to say, oh, I don't know where button is at, right? It gets worse if that's called something like this. Button is usually going to be components, button, right? Oh, components, and then my button is going to be here. Okay. This is kind of a real world case. All right, so components button, and what I'm going to do here, I'm going to say, go back to Webpack config. I'm going to say, hey, you know what? You should try and resolve. Let me just double check that I'm on track. That's power singing. Okay. You know what? I'm going to tell you how you resolve files. So from, right now and usually we can resolve from node modules. So if you say import React, import D3, import whatever, it's going to try to find it from the node modules. So import my modules, resolving modules through. Okay, this is going to be actually an array. Okay. I'm going to use the same path resolve, and I'm going to say node modules. So first, try to find that folder or that file in node modules. Okay. We need to. This is the default value. By default, this is what Webpack resolves. Like you imagine this is like a hidden config. But you know what? I also want to resolve everything that's inside source directory. That's why I have this as a constant, because I can reuse it. Also, my source directory. Okay. Webpack can refresh our code when we do this, when we write code inside an app. But Webpack doesn't really know how to restart config when we change it. Yeah, I think that's a good thing. Okay. I'm going to shut it down, start it again. I like when I don't see any red notifications. Okay, I'm going to go back. I'm try to do this real slow, and I'll keep that below so you can see it. Hey, hello, shift. It works. Okay. So what works? I'm going to come back to my index.js. What works is that I don't have to use relative paths. And this is a huge productivity boost. Awesome. Okay, so I said I'm going to be talking about aggressive caching. So I'm not going to run these examples for real right now, but we're just going to play, okay? Maybe in the interest of time. I'm going to close this guy, and I'm going to push this up so we can see we're used to this setup, right? I'm going to go back to Webpack config, go back to file loader. So we said that where's my hash? Oh, I'm totally doing this, totally improvising this. So we said that we can tell Webpack to change the name of the file that's coming from the loader, and that's to enable caching, aggressive caching. So right, we do this. And then we run build. Okay, what we get is, again, index and then huge hash, right? We can limit that hash and make it more readable, like this, hash, and say it's only like 5 characters long. Okay, see that here? Okay. In my personal experience, 5 is the sweet spot. If you don't want to have too many hash, too large files, and this is specifically important if you have CSS modules. So if you use CSS modules and you tell Webpack to use hash on class names inside CSS modules, this means that Webpack is going to import CSS and it's going to replace class names with it can replace hash names with whatever settings you give it, which is a great thing if you want to isolate your app so you don't have conflicts with some other apps that are maybe running in the same environment. Hash and then 5 characters of hash is usually kind of the sweet spot unless you have tons of CSS. With 4, if you use just 4 characters of that hash, then it's very easy. It's a lot easier to get into conflicts, right? CSS naming conflicts, because the hash name may repeat. So, like if this was CSS and you want to get like random, like totally unknown CSS names, then you might not even use name. You might use just hash, and it's going to actually, as I said, randomize class names. Actually, very useful. You can use a number of settings here. You can use even an emoji. This is cool. This is very useful, right? Well, you know what? You can say 8 emojis. Okay, let's randomize this. Oh my gosh. Okay, doesn't look nice. So we'll play some more. Okay, just so you see. That's awesome. That's my file name. Okay. However, the problem here is I have a build folder full of crazy names, right? How do we get rid of that? Okay, a common thing, this is a very common thing in these environments. So I'm going to use, there's just a number of ways. There is Webpack clean plugin, there's rimraf for Webpack. I personally like to use node module or npm module called rimraf. Like the name comes from this, rm minus rf, right? Rimraf. So yarn add rimraf. Okay. I install that, and I'm gonna say I'm gonna get back to package JSON. And when I build, I'm gonna say rimraf build, and then, okay, if I use then, that's not gonna be that great because they're gonna run at the same time, but I want to run Webpack after I'm done cleaning. So this means clean build folder. You know, this is probably not a Webpack thing, but it's good to know. And I rebuild, and then I list my build settings, my build folder. I'm only going to get these awesome files. Okay. Getting back to my list, I have aggressive caching, squared away, HTML Webpack plugin. That's a useful one. So that's going to be our first plugin. Okay, so previously we added our HTML file by importing index.html, which as a result created a new asset. So the files that we see here are called assets. Okay, so we see a new asset called index.html inside the build, but maybe sometimes we will want to change this output file name. Maybe we want to change, maybe we want to hash that too. Okay, maybe we want to do hash here. Okay, you see app and then 9B7754AED3. You know, the problem here is, can anyone identify the problem with this? So what I need to do, I need to copy this guy, okay, and paste it here. Bless you, again. And I need to paste it, and I need to do that for every build. And this hash is going to change every time we change something in our bundle. And that's hopefully going to be always, because we are developers, we kind of develop and we kind of change things. So hashes are going to change. So to help us kind of from modifying this, we can do two things. One is we can build our own plugin that's going to read through these assets, because Webpack exposes the API that you can attach to that API your plugin, and then get the list of resources, and you can figure out what your index.html is. I'm sorry, what your JavaScript module is, what your bundle is. But because mostly we do the same thing over and over again, there is a super useful plugin called HTML Webpack plugin. And this is incredibly difficult to memorize. Okay, I'm gonna get back. HTML Webpack plugin. Feel free to add that. I'm gonna work in on the right hand side in my config. Okay, so you know what? Now that I install it, I am actually gonna need to require it. Cons HTML Webpack plugin. So while I'm writing this, can anyone answer why path is lowercase path and HTML is uppercase HTML? There's one thing that you could tell just by the way I named this variable. It's a constructor, yeah. Who was that? Someone give him a candy. Thank you. Plugin, okay. So that means that I'm going to use new keyword with this. I'm going to use new keyword. And where did I do this? I'm going to go down, plugins, and that's an array of plugins. New HTML Webpack plugin. That's all I need, really. And then this index HTML, I'm going to close it. And I'm going to delete that. And let's hope this works. Wow, look at that. So I have app-b2717. Thank you guys for talking louder than I am. And if I reload, oh, you know what? What else? Index HTML of null again, and I know where that is because oh, I don't have it anymore. That's right. So what I'm going to do, so that I don't just break this right now, where's my index? Okay, root. I'm going to say document.body. Huh? How about this hack? And here I'm going to say document the body. Huh! I hacked my app. Okay. The reason it's not working because I'm not using my HTML anymore. I'm using the HTML template provided with HTML plugin. Okay, so I'm going to try to not get too deep into that because you can look this up, and I'm going to go too far away from where I really want to go. You can tell HTML Webpack plugin to use your own index HTML, and it's still going to append the script tag. Okay. All right, that's awesome. So I hacked it. I'm using the HTML file from that automatically generates the script tag with app.2f2e37 file name, and that's awesome news. And if I can zoom out, any questions so far? No. Index.js? All right. This one? Anyone needs some other files? Webpack? Webpack. So we're going to do this. Webpack. I can't make this. Hold on. Which part of Webpack config do you need? Plugins? Resolve plugins. I could fit both. Who wants a Red Bull now? Okay, this looks like a very nice break while everyone is copying this. How's this going so far for you? It's totally okay to, if you want me to be faster, or if you want me to slow down. This is meant to be interactive, so I'm not I am following the script, but I totally lost it, so I don't even know where I'm at. So I'll be more than happy to do something that you guys would like or need. Anything so far? No. Which one? Oh, okay. Yes, sir. Oh, okay. So modules, the easy way to tell is modules. So we said that files, you're not going to call them files. We're going to call them modules. Okay. Index.js is a module. Coincidentally, index.html is a module too, because we use module-based application development. So this config says, how do we handle modules? When we import a module or when we import a file, how do we handle that? So we can test this in a number of ways, obviously. We can test based on the path or file name, wherever it is. So in some occasions, we may have, let's say, a different CSS, maybe a specific CSS setup for a package that we are importing into our project. And, well, let's say that we have a UI library that uses Sass, and we use less, or we use, CSS in JavaScript. Or we use just plain old CSS. Then the library that we try to import, because we are not importing a build library, we are importing from source codes, then we need to tell our Webpack, hey, you're importing that SCSS or Sass directly, so that means you got to use CSS loader, style loader, and Sass loader. But most likely also post CSS loader, because you want out the prefixing. So you can chain a bunch of loaders for a single file name, for a single file type. And you can say, okay, this is only for content that you get from node modules / my, whatever library I'm using / .scss, right? It's like, it would be like this. Node modules then / some awesome, let's call it awesome, and then .scss, right? I'll probably also need, this is probably not right, this is probably like this, right? There is a better way to test this than that, but I'm trying to kind of showcase. Okay, that was a good question. Any others? No, so the question was the difference between modules and plugins. Oh, I didn't explain plugins. Plugins are going to tap into the Webpack process. And there are multiple phases of Webpack build process. Obviously, before the build starts, and then throughout the life cycle. Before the build starts, during building, and then there is, like a bunch of phases inside to tell how we read those modules from left to right, right to left, and then finally, whatever we once we built everything, we can tap into whatever to that place of the build process and maybe get the manifest of all the files we built. So there is a lot to Webpack plugins and how to build one. I did have a note to try to build a custom. No, but it was like here, custom plugin, but we're not going to get there. I don't think. Okay, any other questions? Okay. Going back to close this guy. Webpack config, and actually this guy. So I said, you know, I wanted to show production and development modes, and honestly, we've done that. Okay, it's here. And I'm going to say const is prod. Okay, so if this is production, then, you know, say this actually is production. I can use this for a number of things. For example, maybe I can change port. Maybe I can also change host name. Maybe I can change in plugins. I can say HTML Webpack plugin. Maybe you should really in production. Maybe you should compress HTML. Or dev server compress is prod. This means if this is prod, then let's test gzip compression too. Okay, well, let's just keep that. Okay, so we covered like a real cool way of defining production variables without using environmental variables. But if we did use environmental variables, those are process, right, or right, something like this. So this is getting back to Node.js, and we're talking about Webpack here, so we'll stick to our thingy. Okay, as for code minification, Webpack uses Uglify.js, and we're going to do this real quickly. So what Uglify.js is going to do, just raise your hands if you heard of it. Uglify.js, everyone. What does it do? Speak up, please. Uglifies, minifies. What else? Obfuscate. Okay, what else? Does it optimize our code? Okay. Minifies file size. Awesome. It also optimizes code to a degree, and is also capable of doing like a poor man's tree shaking. Have you heard of tree shaking? All right, so tree shaking, maybe it's like 50%. So tree shaking is a term used for a process that determines which parts of the code are not accessible. And that is like shaking tree, right? So if your code is not accessible, then probably shouldn't be inside the code. So a kind of a good example is like if we have this function foo, and we have return, right, statement. So we are sure that anything after return is not going to be executed. But then we have, you know, constant, you know, from the date is new date, right? Uglify.js is going to say, oh, this from date part is never going to execute, so I can just safely remove that, right? That's kind of poor man's tree shaking. There is other kind of tree shaking, but then I'm going far ahead, which Webpack 2 does, unlike Webpack 1, and also Rollup, which is another bundler. What it does is it recognizes which imports are not used. And in this example, I have render button from here, but maybe I also have export function foo. I really like foo. And there's some other code, right? Because my application, this is in my code, right? But my application never used foo, so I didn't really need it in the app. Uglify.js cannot do this kind of tree shaking, but the Webpack 2 can. Okay, there is one condition. You need to use ES6 imports or ES6 imports and exports. If you use conversion to AMD, then it's not going to work. We'll try to get there later, but somehow got myself into this. Okay. Code minification with uglify. Ah, yes. Now I remember. Okay, so to do that, we need to install something. Okay. So we need to install something. We need to install two things. Yarn add. Are you guys ready for some installing of npm modules? Yarn add uglify. So don't use uglify.js. Use uglify.js. So uglify recently, very recently, I think that's just a few weeks ago, they changed. They now have two packages. One is uglify-js, and the other one is ES. Okay, so this one could be uglify 3.0 for ECMAScript 5. This one is for ES 6 or 2015 and up. It's still buggy, so I'm not using it, which is why I'm constantly trying to write ES 5 compatible code. So uglify.js, if you use this guy, uglify.js without the dash, it's going to be uglify.js version 2.8 point something. So this guy could be 3 point something. Go figure. And I'm going to say this is a development dependency, but I'm going to need a plugin for this. Okay. While I'm writing the name, which is uglify.js Webpack plugin, uglify.js Webpack plugin. Okay, this is really small. I'll pause here to wait for anyone else who's doing this. Technically, you don't have to install these packages because technically Webpack still supports uglify out of the box. But in one of the future versions, and that's going to come very soon, they're not going to do that. Okay, so you're going to need a plugin and you're going to need uglify.js. Maybe you want to do your minification with another tool, another package. So we're going to need to actually specify. So install these two. Awesome, they're here. Uglify.js 3.0, blah 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 blah. Okay, and as we learn from Webpack plugin, I'm just literally going to copy. Oh, look at that! Copy and paste. Okay. Uglify.js Webpack plugin and uglify.js. Okay, I'm gonna reuse the same code. Okay, may I scroll down? You guys okay? And I'm just gonna add it. New. Okay, that's it. And if I yarn start. Okay, and I reload, test, and this is my code. So who can tell me what's wrong in this picture? I hope you guys can see this. I'm gonna do this guy. What's wrong in this picture? Miro, what's wrong in this picture? How do you debug this? Awesome. So we can't debug. This is exactly why we had is prod. Okay? So what we're gonna say is we're gonna have two arrays of plugins. We have let's have a default plugins. And by default or always, I'm going to have HTML plugin. Plugins is an array, HTML plugins, okay? And then JavaScript, if is prod, okay? Then plugins, just push another one, okay? New uglify.js Webpack plugin. Okay. Okay, what I'm going to try to do again is keep this part of the file here and scroll down. That means that I no longer need this guy. I can reference it like this, right? And if I'm really too cool for school, I can even do this. Because I'm writing ES6, this is node 7 on my computer, so ES6 code is allowed. So just plugins, okay? This means import plugins variable. Any questions so far? Okay. So this means for production, I'm going to use Uglify. For development, I'm not. And if I go back, I'm going to keep this here. Okay. Restart. Okay, index.html, app.js. It's big again, 316 kilobytes. Now that I'm here, I'm really worried about 316 kilobytes of document.body.inner.html. How did I get 316 kilobytes? Huh. Well, what if I do yarn run build? Now what? Now it's only 3.33. Who knows why? Magic? That's a good answer. Someone else? Wizardry? No. Sorcery? What do you think? This is like interview question. Like, I'm interviewing for you for a job at Shift Conference. Stand in front of the whiteboard and tell me, why do you think Webpack outputs a huge file in Webpack dev server, but a small file in without web server, dev server? And I'll tell you why. No, it's not a production build. The thing is, Webpack does a lot of things, right? One of the cool things it does, one of the reasons why we use Webpack dev server, is so the guy can watch, right? We know the capabilities of a watcher, right? Just raise your hands. It's totally cool if you raise your hands. I'll try to explain this better. But if you're cool, then I'm just going to say Webpack needs to watch your files. When it watches your files, it needs to tell your app that something has changed, right? And you know what? Webpack uses sockets, WebSockets. Actually, it uses socket.io. And sockets.io has like a big client-side code to work with WebSockets and communicate with the server. So Webpack dev server says, okay, you're using dev server. It's a dev server, right? So I don't care. I'm just gonna inject like a bunch of code into your app so you can reload, right? Maybe you can leverage hot module loading or reloading, but we're gonna get there. So that's where this difference comes from. Okay, just so you know, you don't get freaked out like, oh, what the hell. But then again, we have 3.33 kilobytes, which is still pretty large, right? And if I do, let's.
Sorry, I didn't get it. Why is going with the build one way or another actually? How does he know should he or shouldn't he put all these?
Oh, okay, so the question is, how does Webpack know if it should include that boilerplate code, that socket and whatever code it needs to run Webpack dev server operations? So the difference is in the commands. First time we ran, where is it? Yarn start. Second time we executed a yarn run build. If we go back to package JSON, we're gonna see that these are different commands, start and build. Start is Webpack dev server, but build is just Webpack. Okay? no server-side code, not server-side, not server communication code. Okay, thank you for asking all these questions. So this is what our build looks like. This is like a bunch of weird stuff, and then we finally get to our application, right? This is just our app. Okay, but everything else is some boilerplate code. So this part is essential for Webpack because it tells Webpack how to require files. It tells Webpack how to dynamically download your chunks, your application code, okay? So just so you know, I'm not going to get into details, but just so you know that Webpack also adds a little bit of code to your app. And that's totally okay because it helps us build awesome apps. Okay, code modification done. Hot reloading, awesome. Does anyone need a break? Does anyone need Red Bull? Okay. Raise your hand if you learned something new. Awesome. Raise your hand if you've used hot reloading. Have you ever used hot reloading? Well, I got 4 hands. The 4 of you, have you ever set it up? No? Okay. Awesome. Yes, I'm totally cool. Okay, so what's hot reloading? Not sure if you noticed, and I'm going to try to do that. Yarn start, and I'm going to get back to this guy, and I'm going to close this ugly, oh no, wrong thing. This guy? Okay, close this, open this. Okay, actually still going to open this guy. Okay. Set up my workspace. And a button, shift, okay. And you know what? I'm going to have to move this because I want you guys to see. And I'm going to get back to button. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, hello, I'm a button. Shift rocks. Oh, okay, you can like only one. Shift rocks, okay? When you press save, I expect this guy's to update, right? This guy. I saved and it updated. However, I don't really like how it updated because it reloaded the entire app. Okay? I'm gonna do this again. I'm gonna do this. It reloaded the entire app. That's unfortunate. I don't really like that. For a number of reasons. One is it's slow. 2, if it's a bigger app, I'm gonna maybe be scrolled down and it's gonna lose that position. Maybe I don't want to lose state, right? So we can tell it to just update the component without me knowing. Okay, that's gonna be tricky. So let's try. Going back to this guy, Webpack config. Okay, so hot reloading we definitely don't want to use in production build. Okay. Sometimes people do that, but in most cases we don't want that, which means that we need to change something. And the thing we need to change is inside the entry. So entry we need to modify. It's a good thing that we have this little code here, and I'm going to move it down inside its function. Who knows why? Because that's where I know if it's a production build or not. Hold on, hold it. Okay. Okay, so my entry point is this guy, and I'm going to make it an array. Actually, I'm going to make it an array. So entry point is an array. Why? Because if this is hot module reloading, I need some additional code. The way to add an additional code is to add it into the entry point. But I need to add it before the rest of my code. Okay, so I'm going to use some JavaScript here. You've heard of push, right? We're using it here. So this is like a default. But if this is not prod, else, meaning if this is development, then entry dot unshift. What's the difference between unshift and push? Can you speak up? It's totally okay. It's okay to be wrong too. Inserts it where? Okay, yeah. So unshift is the opposite of push. Push just appends content to the end of the array. Unshift inserts it at the beginning of an array. So as I said, we need to add some codes, and we're going to unshift. I need to literally copy this guy. So we're going to add Webpack dev server client. Okay, and this is just stupid boilerplate code. And I'm going to need to know what the host. This is like local host. And I'm going to reuse port, right? I'm going to reuse port, and this is the right way. Okay. I'm going to need one more thing. I'm going to need move Webpack hot only dev server. Okay. These two guys. So these two guys are going to come. My Elton John thing. I'm okay. You can keep on sleeping. Thanks. So my entry point is I need to add like these two guys at the beginning of my entry point, and I'm almost done. This is almost that. So I need two more things. How do I do this? Okay, I'll keep this here. Can you guys still see and copy this part? No? I'm going to wait a second. Is it a party? Okay. I have a colon. Where do I have a colon? Oh, you're right. Good catch. You just saved me from failing this. Maybe I still fail. Thanks. So output. I need to make sure I know what public path is. So I'm telling Webpack, dude, just watch everything that happens from just the root of this web server. So I need this. This is kind of what I should have done from the beginning, but I went with minimal app. And I want to say, oh, you know, it's going to be hot reloaded app, but only in development, so not as prod. And more links. Okay. And I need one more thing. I need a thing called content base. Okay. So I need to tell Webpack on my server side what to watch. So I'm going to say there's going to be the build directory. Okay, I should have everything that I need for hot reloading, but let's give it a try. I'll move this to the left and this guy to the left so you guys can still copy. I'm going to start it. Let's see if I'm, yeah. Okay. Okay, so I'm missing something. Of course. Because I'm writing in output, and I should have been writing in dev server. I'm sorry about that. If you copied me, it's not output, it's dev server settings. Okay. I'm gonna move the app to the left, reload, and it's disabled. Okay. I need to debug it. The beauty of live coding. So what am I missing? I need to check what I'm missing. What am I missing? Oh. Yes, totally forgot. There is one more thing. There is a Webpack plugin. Webpack is, so get Webpack from require Webpack. This is funny because this is Webpack config and I'm still requiring Webpack. Okay. Webpack. And then plugins. So there's more config in plugins for not prod. Plugins, push, new, Webpack dot, and the name is there it is. Okay, still following. I'll pause a little bit for those who are copying. Okay. I'm missing public path here, but that's not going to stop. That's not going to stop reloading from happening. There is going to be one more thing, but for now, I just want this application to work. Okay. Restart. Retry. Ah, it works. So we get is waiting for update signal from WDS and then hot module. What's WDS? Who knows? This is really tricky. Webpack development server. And then WDS says hot module replacement is enabled. So I told Webpack, hey, you know, with this little bit of config, I said, dude, enable hot module replacement, but I need to also tell my application how to use it. Okay, so I'm gonna get back here. I'm gonna say, there's a little bit of code. I said if module.hot. So if there is hot module replacement, then I want to do this module. This is just like crazy code, but you definitely don't need to know this by heart. I don't know it by heart either, but it's good to understand what it does. Okay. So we're gonna say except this is like registering an event. And we're going to say something. I'll show what function. Okay, and when that happens, I'm going to say render button again. Okay. Okay. So what am I looking for? I'm looking for components. I'm trying to look for the closest path to the stuff I'm watching. So usually if it's an application, I'm going to try to watch component/application. I only have button. So I'm going to try it, right? Is it button? Probably is. Yeah. And this should work. Okay. But the only way to check this is to write some code inside the button. Ah, awesome. Okay, it is working. There is one problem that everyone is like, what the hell, I'm seeing more buttons. Why am I seeing more buttons? Because this is a clear actually win. It shows that hot module replacement is only executing this code. So I'm just appending another button, okay? If this was a smarter app, I would be replacing that button, but our app is not too smart. So, you know, we can work around this. We can say hello shift and say div ID is button, and then close div, and then we can say button. Okay, so now we created a div. Okay. Awesome. So we created a div and we're just replacing it. So I'm gonna write something and it replaces. All good? Okay. We technically have 20 more minutes. Is there something that you would like to add here? No, okay. So with that said, hot reloading is done. Yes, sir.
You showed us the app.js file or index.js file. Could you open it up?
Yes, sir. This guy.
Yeah. Do you have to do that for each and every function?
No, you do that only in the entry point, in the first. Well, it doesn't have to be entry point, but in the app that bootstraps your code. The cool thing, it's actually a good question. So the cool thing is we created an event listener. It says listen on every HMR, hot module replacement event. When it happens, if the path matches component/button, then do something. What it does is it is going to call render button again. If this is an app, you would only, this could be like app, and then you say app, and then you say app again. Then, you know, whenever it matches an update on your app, and then anything that stems from your app is going to, you know, is going to propagate up. So if it's a component nested under your app, that component, that information is going to propagate it. So if that's updated, then HMR says everything that includes this component needs to know that this component is updated. If application includes eventually that button component, then application technically has updated too, right? And you're going to say, oh, application, there's an update. And then you're going to tell application, okay, application, re-render. Okay. In most modern frameworks, they're going to know, especially React, it's going to know, hey, you know, only the button has changed, so I'm not going to re-render the entire application. I'm just going to re-render the app. So that's why the only thing you need to re-render is the actual app. Okay? So you only need this in one place. So this again depends. If you use, I'm going to stick to React now. Is this okay? So if you use React and it's technically not going to keep state quite as you would imagine. But there is a React hot loader module that you can use, and it kind of patches things. It's literally a patch. It patches communication between HMR and your application, and it can retain state. Okay. There's one more thing. If you have Redux, then you may need to write this for your Redux as well, because Redux is technically detached from the app. And you're going to need to tell Redux, hey, a Redux module has changed, then, you know, reinsert all the reducers, and that's gonna re-import global state too, right? That's gonna make changes too. So if you have a React with Redux application, then you're gonna have this code in 2 places. All good? So I can show that. All right. Thanks for joining us. And we're done. No. I was gonna show some more advanced stuff. I'll quickly touch performance budgets. That's a cool thing that was introduced into Webpack 2.2, I think. Just kind of remember it because I'm probably not going to have the time to go through this. It can tell you if your bundles are too large. You can set it to give them a warning or an exception if one of the assets or a combination of assets are too large. By default, this is 300 kilobytes, which gives you a clear idea when your application is starting to get really large, and it's going to take some time for it to be transferred to a client's computer. Source maps. This is incredibly important. Obviously, you're going to want. I'm just going to talk from now on. Source maps is the settings called DevTool. Okay, and there is like a number of source map kind of types of source maps. Source map is the kind of easiest. This creates a new file, and there's a lot of information about your source code. There's a problem. It comes at a huge expense of build time. This can add, like, I don't know, this can make your build 20, 30, even 50% slower. It's very expensive. We usually use this for production build, the source map. The fastest, so let's say it is prod, then use source map. The fastest source map is eval. It evaluates source maps and puts that code into your, like, inside the source code. This is super fast. It makes your application grow in terms of size and bytes. But again, it's the fastest thing you can do in development environment. Usually awesome, usually good enough. There is a problem. When you use this, you don't get enough information, and you see source maps for the code that was built, right? And if you use ES6, you're going to see ES5 transpiled code, the stuff that Babel sends to your browser. And most often, not the most phenomenal development experience. There is another way. Cheap module. Is it source map? I need to double check. Source map. What this guy does is it's actually going to send source maps that are going to be identical to your ES6 code. It's a bit slower than eval, but not as slow as source map. That's why we have cheap, so not everything is inside. It's usually, this is my favorite development environment, source map config. Comes at, there's a problem with it. Sometimes it's not very easy to step through things like arrow functions. Okay, but the source code exactly matches your original source. Questions? No. Does anyone know, is that a party outside? It's what? Oh, really? Against Shift? Okay, code splitting. This is the time when I close this app. Does anyone need something from this app? No? This is the time when I close this and go to a real app. Okay. Need to close this guy. Okay. Okay, this is a real life app, and I'm going to show it to you. This is a budgeting app. Right now, it's served from Firebase. There's a good reason for it because it's HTTPS, and we can leverage some cool stuff like service workers. And we can use server-side push because this is an HTTP2 server. This comes from a repo that you can check out. I think we sent this in an email, but in case you haven't seen it, because I hear that like 300 some people signed up in the last 2 days. So if you're one of the 300, this is the code. This is the GitHub repo that you can use to check this out. So this is a real life app built in React that uses a bunch of awesome stuff in Webpack. And one of the things is code splitting. Now, raise your hand if you use code splitting. No, okay. Raise your hands if you know what code splitting is. Phenomenal. Okay. So we only had one hand. I know a couple of you guys have heard of it, but you're too shy to show your hands. I have the step 0, which is this same app, but without a lot of magic that's coming from Webpack. So if I start it, it's going to take a few more seconds because it's a slightly larger app. Okay. Okay. So there are two main tabs. There's budget and reports. Reports are going to have these awesome charts, beautiful charts, but they use D3 library. Because they use D3 library, they come with an additional almost 500 kilobytes worth of code. So imagine if this was our entry point, if this was like the landing page budget, most of the users might not ever get to see reports. Maybe they really want to see the grid, the budget grid. Maybe they just want to see what their working balance is. However, to get there, they're going to have to download the entire D3 library. I'm not talking about like huge numbers. 500 kilobytes is still okay. However, some people don't have the luxury of having high-speed network connections. Maybe they are using this on a mobile phone. Maybe they are in a third world country, not having anything faster than maybe even a modem. So a lot more people have slow network connections than people that have fast network connections. So we really have to worry about this. And then there goes this entire, talk about every 100 milliseconds you can shave off gives you 1.1% of chance for conversion, and people leaving sites after waiting for 3 seconds and so on. So the way we do this is we say, okay, we figure out that there is a bit of code that's going to be used for serving this route. Route is /budget. And then there is another bit of code that's going to serve /reports. Okay, so because they don't need to be the same code, right? They don't need to be bundled into one file. Let's reload. Okay, they don't need to be main.js. And if I disable cache, it's going to be a lot better. Main.js is .6 megs. Okay. What I can do is I can tell Webpack, okay, at some point, split this into a separate file. In this example, okay, I happen to know that this is going to be in 2 files. There are 2 routes, okay? Each one has a config that says, okay, when I'm in this route called reports, then import this file, component/reports panel, okay, import this file, and then use it. There is a huge difference between this import and this import. This import is very similar to system import, but it's a newer version, and it's very similar to the require. Actually, not exactly require. It's very similar to the require.ensure. Require.ensure is a Webpack term that's used for code splitting in AMD types of packages or Webpack 1. Then we said, okay, we can use the new system.import. But then someone realized, oh, it's a little bit buggy, it doesn't really have all the features they want. So they said, okay, it's no longer that, it's import. So import is now, I think, stage 3, which means that it's going to be part of most likely the next version of JavaScript, which should be ES 2018, right? So this import statement is going to be part of browsers too. But right now, Webpack recognizes that. So, oh, import. Okay, you guys use import statement, and I'm going to say, okay, at this component/reports panel, I'm going to create a new bundle. There's going to be a new file in the build output, and there is this little cool piece of code that you totally can't see now. It says Webpack chunk name reports. That means when you create that new chunk or new bundle, new JavaScript file, give it a name so we know what it is. Okay, I'll try to show that in here. Okay, we have budget and we have reports. Okay, still we have this hash name so we can aggressively cache. Budget and reports is separate JavaScript files. What we do in Webpack, you're going to see a very similar config to what you had. What we do in Webpack, as soon as I find it, I'm going to stop. Okay, chunk file name. Okay, this is a new property called chunk file name, and this specifies how we name those chunks. We take the name that we obtained from that comment, add hash, I said 8 characters max, and append.js. That's it. So I think that kind of solved for code splitting. Most of you are not, you gave up from copying this, and for a good reason. But if you check this code again, just so you know, chunk file name is what names the file, and the import statement in route/budget or /reports is what actually does all the code splitting magic. And now when we load the application, if you're on budget tab, we're going to just load the budget file, okay, and not reports. So we only send what's called above the fold content or critical path content, only the content that's needed to render this page. And that's exactly how we split huge applications using Webpack so they keep on running smooth and fast. I think this is one of the most important things in Webpack. It would be awesome if you use this in your apps. That should definitely help your users a lot. Okay. Any questions about code splitting? No. Okay. I'm gonna show you one more thing, and then we're out of time. Often when we have multiple code split bundles, as you start using this, you're gonna notice, oh well, I'm using this component button in one of these files, and then button, I'm importing it again, and it's actually imported in multiple chunks. So I have some code that's not being reused, it's being rebundled, and it keeps on getting, keeps my chunk size large, and I don't really want that. So there is something called Common Chunk plugin. So please raise your hands if you've heard of it. No? Common chunks? So as the name suggests, it tries to figure out the common parts of your chunks. And often online, you're going to see Common Chunk plugin used to extract vendor files. Meaning, if you have React, if you have React Router, you can use Common Chunk to extract those dependencies into a separate file. I say no. That's totally wrong because there's no use of it, and there are two problems. One is if you do that, that file is still needed to bootstrap your app, right? So don't even extract it. Keep it as part of your entry point. It's going to be that app.js, that core. You do want to keep that core super small. But if you need React to render your app, then it doesn't need to be in a different file. There's an additional cost to processing that the common chunk, right? So you don't want that. But the bigger problem is if you use common chunks and you say, I want to have React Router, Redux, all those libraries I want to have in a special dedicated JavaScript file. The problem is you can't use tree shaking for that anymore because you told Webpack very specifically, grab those modules, grab those packages, and put them in a separate JavaScript file. I don't care what's inside, I don't care what's being used, but just grab the entire module, entire package, and put it in a separate file. If you don't do that, you actually let Webpack figure out which parts of React Router you actually used. You know, maybe you didn't use as navigation link. Maybe you just use link. Like, so it's not going to use. It's going to be able to save a few kilobytes from your code. However, what you can use, and this is actually really smart. Oh, I'm not on. You can use Common Chunk plugin, and you can tell it. I'm just going to switch to main, to master. You can tell Common Chunk to actually figure out the code that's being. You can tell it to figure out the code that's being reused. And what I'm saying here is, okay, create an asynchronous build, which means that it's not going to block application from loading. So if we have the core application, the files needed for the core application to start are going to stay in that core. But everything that doesn't need to be there, that's asynchronous. That can be loaded later. Process all the children, okay, straightforward. And if a component or if a module, right, if a file is important in more than one other chunk, right? So we have budget and reports, right? If we have components that are important in both budget and reports, then we're going to create a new JavaScript file that's going to contain only those files that are common, that are used in both, right? I think this is clear, I hope. So the cool thing is Webpack is going to figure this out automatically, and it's created a new file. Just to show, I'm going to show this on this app. In this example, it's called 0.93 blah blah blah, and this is a small, I think 5 kilobytes large file. Oh, come on. That contains that common code. It's not big. It looks big though. Okay, I'm sure you can understand this. But it's super important that you guys can use this. You can go to further lengths with Common Chunk plugins. So you added a function to manually parse all the chunks. But this actually bit is super helpful. If you ever use, and again I'm going to mention React, if you ever use create React app and you eject it, that means to say I'm not going to use your ecosystem anymore. I'm going to manage my own Webpack. You're going to see a code very similar to this one. They use it there too. Okay. With that said, I'm going to leave the floor to your questions because I know you're right on time. No? Okay. There are a lot more cool stuff in this repo that I'm going to try to keep updated and documented. Already a bunch of stuff inside that shows how you can help your application be a lot faster in terms of build faster, run faster, deploy faster, and so on, okay? I think everything else that I mentioned here and a lot more are actually inside. So thank you very much for your attention and sticking with us for the last 2 hours. I know it wasn't easy. I'm glad if you got to learn something, and I'm glad if you got to bring something home. You've seen a bunch of Twitter notification. So this is my Twitter. You can hit me up there if you need any help, questions. Thank you. See you at the party tonight. Thanks.